The world is full of urban legends, remarkable stories that spread like viruses around the planet, mutating and evolving until no one can remember which ones are true and which ones are urban legends. In this episode called Heads or Tails, you'll see 3 unbelievable stories about luck, some good and some very bad. First up, a bad break at a bachelor party ends up threatening a lot more than the wedding.
What's up? Karen, come back!
Then, a lucky day for lotto winners seems to have only one kooky explanation.
So tell me, how do you pick your lottery numbers?
And finally, a successful small businessman sees his world fall apart with one shocking stroke of bad luck. Watch all 3 stories and decide which urban legends are true and which ones are false. Find out if you guessed right at the end of the show. First, it's a story we like to call The Naked Truth. Leslie DeSoto has many talents, but New Jersey residents know her best as the columnist who brings them the week's most sensational news. But even DeSoto couldn't believe the story she discovered after a viral video arrived in her inbox.
One of my friends found it and said, "This has got to be a story for you." The fallout was pretty intense. The whole town's laughing, and it was pretty sad for everybody concerned.
It all started in 2007. David and Karen are about to get married, but there's one problem. Karen knows what David's buddies have planned for his bachelor party, and she is not happy.
So she said, do your drinking, do your gambling, whatever it is you're going to do, but no strippers.
David is on board,
Deal? I mean, I don't care.
but not his buddies.
She can't come. No strippers, okay?
You know, they said, she's running your life already. You're not even married. What's it going to be like in 5 years or 10 years? But he said, look, this is the way it's got to be.
You're promising to spend the rest of your life with her? No, guys, no, it's not happening.
With no strippers, the friends turned their attention to one thing.
Lots of drinking.
But David has underestimated his friends.
All right, guys, I'll be right back.
And he said to the guys, you got to get these girls out of here. Karen never finds out I'm dead meat.
It doesn't take long for David's buddies to change his mind.
He was always kind of easily influenced by them when he'd had too much to drink, so this was certainly no exception. They just said, look, she's never going to find out. Just enjoy. Enjoy. It's your last chance of freedom.
But David has gone a lot longer than anyone expected. Curiosity gets the better of them.
It's just this whole embarrassing thing. And this girl is, ride 'em, cowboy. You got it, ride 'em, cowboy.
Their judgment clouded by hours of drinking, David's buddies can't keep the shocking video to themselves.
He decides he's going to email it to his friend who couldn't make it to the party. And then his friend thinks this is so funny, hilarious, so he emails it to a bunch of friends.
News travels fast in the small town. It's not long before David's fiancée gets a call.
David came home about 6 in the morning.
Karen is waiting with packed bags.
She just couldn't believe that this man that she'd been with since she was a teenager, that they had all these plans. How dare he do this to her?
Karen, come back!
Karen calls off the wedding and leaves him for good.
He was absolutely devastated. He really loved Karen, and she was gone.
David tries to drown his sorrows, but 24 hours of solid drinking has only made it worse. Without the love of his life, he decides he has no reason to live.
His first thought was to use a gun, but of course he didn't have a gun and he didn't know how to get one. Then he thought, well, it might be kind of messy, so that's not gonna work. And he thought, well, I'll hang myself. But then he realized the only place he could do that was at his house, and that was also Karen's house. And what happened if she would come home and she'd have to find him, and he'd been terrible enough to her, he didn't want to put her through that too. So he said, no, I won't do that.
David's determination not to hurt anyone else is making his suicide bid complicated, and it's about to lead him to a bizarre end.
So he thought, trains. People die on train tracks all the time. He actually laid down on the tracks, and he stayed there for about 10 minutes. And then as he was laying there, he realized, oh my gosh, how awful would that be for the engineer? He really was a nice guy. You know, he didn't want to hurt people. He just made mistakes.
Finally, David finds the perfect place to end it all. He's just about to leap to his death.
And he realized that someone else was on the bridge with him.
Good-hearted to the end, he doesn't want to scar a stranger with the memory of his jump. But what he sees is incredible. It's Karen. Equally broken-hearted and ashamed, she's also decided to end it all.
They'd both been ready to jump off the bridge when they realized that they could have ended their lives because of each other. They also realized that they had blown this all out of proportion.
Two lovers torn apart by a night of drunken stupidity are reunited by their sorrow just in time to save both of their lives. But did it really happen? Find out at the end of the show. But before then, check out this mini-myth. Mini-myth number 55,672, couch potato. Tired of her passed-out partner taking up valuable couch space, a St. Petersburg woman decided to tuck him in for good by folding the sofa bed with him still in it. 3 hours later, she returned thinking he'd learned his lesson. Instead, she found him suffocated in the sheets. Was it true or false? It was true. In 2008, a woman in St. Petersburg really did fold her other half in half. On Urban Legends, we show you 3 incredible stories. You must decide which are rock-solid truth and which are shaky lies. So far, you've seen the story of the lovers who almost fell to their deaths after one of them fell from grace. But is it real or fake? We'll let you know at the end of the show. Now it's time for our next story. It's called Unlucky Numbers. Lottery official Rebecca Hargrove is a pretty lucky person. Every day, she gives away millions of dollars.
Our biggest jackpot ever has been $353 million, so it's an exciting game.
But there's one draw that Rebecca will never forget.
But when we saw 110 winners, there was nothing that made it make any sense.
It looked like the biggest lottery fraud in history, and whoever did it was about to get away with the crime. It all began in 2005 at the Lotto headquarters in Nashville, Tennessee. It's an average day with an average jackpot. But then, something unexplainable happens.
In a jackpot of $25 million, we'd expect about 4 winners nationwide of the second prize. We had 12 in Tennessee alone, and we had 110 across the country.
And it just doesn't make
With
any
30
sense.
times more winners than usual, the lottery stands to lose tens of millions of dollars. It looks like someone has rigged the draw, but how?
checked the records, we've checked
The security behind the drawings are something that all of us take very, very seriously. We have multiple machines, and you actually do a lottery to determine which ball sets will be used.
Fraud should be impossible, but there's no other way to explain how 110 people could all pick the exact numbers to win second prize.
If 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is ever drawn, 3,000 people will split the jackpot because that's how many people play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 each drawing.
But these numbers appear completely random. Could there be a hidden pattern?
I took out a play slip that you fill out to play, and I started plotting where the winning numbers were, because people will play a diagonal line or an X or a box.
But Rebecca still can't solve the mystery.
We were all emailing and calling each other about, well, I looked at this, have you looked at that? Well, what about this?
Then she gets another idea. What if all 110 winners copied their numbers from the same source?
There's a cartoon that prints lottery numbers hidden somewhere in the graphics. It wasn't in there. There was a very popular TV show here in the United States that had an episode featuring a lottery ticket with 6 numbers on it. It wasn't that.
But their search finds nothing. The lottery officials are baffled.
Just wasn't any of the things where you would normally look to see why a large number of people had played a particular combination of numbers.
Morning dawns. Winners from around the state arrive to claim their prize. Are they about to get away with one of the biggest scams in lottery history?
There's no way for anyone to know anything unless there's fraud.
It's Rebecca's last chance to get the information she needs.
I'm Rebecca Hargrove, the CEO of the Tennessee Lottery Corporation. You must be very pleased and excited.
completely excited. Yes, absolutely.
So tell me, how do you pick your lottery numbers?
An incredible story begins to unfold.
My favorite Chinese restaurant is called the Golden Dragon. I always get a fortune cookie, and I usually don't keep them, but this one said, "Your special day is coming."
On the back of the fortune cookie are 6 lucky numbers. A few weeks later, Jacqueline remembers her fortune and plays the number on the lottery.
I happen to have been at school. I'm a teacher. And when I pulled out my purse and saw it, I screamed.
Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Scared, are you all right? I won the lottery! I won the lottery!
The children at home are scared to have a heart attack. You know, our kids get. And I said, no, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine.
Thank you.
Some of the stories are even more unbelievable. Like that of Cheryl Shingler. She isn't picky about food.
Everybody just happened to want Chinese that day. And me, I don't care what they order to eat, I always eat, so.
And that includes the cookie.
I kind of like them. I like that little sweet taste, you know.
What's it say?
It says the truth will set you free.
But no matter what the fortune says, Cheryl never plays the lottery.
I think the only reason I did it that day was because I was in such a good mood and just felt giddy about it.
She plays the lucky numbers in the cookie.
First time I ever played the lottery, and it probably won't be the last.
It turns out to be one of the best decisions of her life.
Shortly after that, somebody came into Minnesota and they had used a fortune cookie. Somebody came into Colorado, they had used a fortune cookie.
But for Rebecca, a big question remains. How did so many people get the right cookie at the right time? She discovers the surprising fact. One company prints most of the fortune cookies sold in the US. So how did they pick which numbers to print? It turns out they held a lottery of their own.
The numbers to print on the back of a fortune cookie were drawn in the factory.
1, so lucky day. 50.
And then drawn in the actual drawing. So it was double luck. That must mean something in Chinese.
So there was no conspiracy after all.
So the relief was that there was no fraud, that it was pure luck.
And in a strange twist, it was the Lottery Corporation who was the lucky one after all. At the fortune cookie factory, they learned there were far more than 110 cookies with the winning numbers.
Could have been hundreds of thousands of winners if every single person who had gotten a fortune cookie chose to play the same set of numbers.
Lucky numbers wrapped in fortune cookies go out to Chinese restaurants across the country and get cracked open just in time to hit it big. Did it really happen? Find out at the end of the show. But first, check out this mini-myth. Mini-myth number 9,721. All that glitters ain't gold. On the New York subway, Susan Baldwin realized a thief had taken a shine to her necklace. Seconds before her stop, she spotted the swindler and made a split-second decision to grab her gold. But as the train rolled off, Susan discovered she'd yanked the wrong chain. Hers had actually snapped and fallen into her blouse. She just robbed a man in broad daylight. Was it true or fake? It's fake. Mistakenly committing a robbery is a common theme for urban legends, but this story is fool's gold. On Urban Legends, we show you 3 incredible stories. You must decide which ones are the hairy truth and which are bald-faced lies. So far, you've seen the story of the suicide attempt that saves a marriage, and the story of the fortune cookies that almost cracked the lottery. But which of these stories are the real thing? All will be revealed at the end of the show. Now it's time for our final story. It's called Hanging by a Thread. John Chow is a self-proclaimed carpet king.
You could see me sometimes on television saying, hey, buy my carpets.
He's built his empire with hard work and good fortune until one night a few years ago when John's luck ran out and his world turned upside down.
15 years of hard work gone.
It all began on a seemingly normal day in 2007. John's carpet business is now the biggest in the state, leaving him little time for anything other than work and sleep. But tonight will be anything but restful. John's friend Calvin calls in the middle of the night with bad news about the shop.
Hello? John, it's Calvin. Calvin called and he said that the front window had been smashed.
You sure? Is it just vandalism, or is there an intruder inside?
So I put on a sweater and a windbreaker and ran to my store. I peered in just in case to see if anybody else was in there, but I didn't see anybody. And so I climbed in through the window.
But the second John sets foot in the shop, something unexplainable happens.
I look down, fire.
The fire jumps from rug to rug.
I just got the hell out of there. There it was, all 15 years of my carpet business up in flames.
By the time the fire is out, nothing remains of John's carpet store. But to the fire marshal, his story sounds suspicious. How could a fire just spring out of nowhere? Then firefighters make a discovery that only deepens the mystery.
The fire marshal told me it was a flammable solvent that had caused the fire.
Is it a random act of arson? Or is it someone trying to put him out of business? As the investigation continues, the scope of the disaster is sinking in.
What's going to happen tomorrow when I have no business?
Then investigators discover something no one can explain. The fire started at the front of the shop. An intruder could not have set it from the back. John is now the prime suspect.
I just couldn't believe it. Why would I burn down my store? It was a thriving business.
It's becoming a bizarre mystery.
I was baffled, truly baffled.
But John's shop assistant, Katie, could hold the answer. Arriving in tears, she makes a confession.
I did tell Katie to use some solvent to clean. I didn't worry about it being flammable. After all, these kind of solvents dry up very quickly.
But Katie forgot to put the lid back on the highly flammable solvent. Whoever broke in must have knocked it over.
And the solvent quickly spread to the carpets and the rugs.
But a bigger mystery remains. Who started the fire? John goes over his story again. This time, it sparks a memory.
While I'm on the carpet, all of a sudden, I hear this crack. Crack!
The fire marshal is stunned, but he thinks he has an explanation, even if it's weird.
The woolen sweater and the windbreaker that I was wearing had caused a lot of static electricity.
The friction from his run built up a massive static charge.
The fire marshal told me I probably had about 40,000 volts of static electricity running through me, which I didn't even know.
On any other day, John would have gotten a harmless shock. But this was not John's lucky day.
When I touched the carpet and touched the solvent at the same time, it sparked enough to ignite a fire.
Thanks to a cruel coincidence, John ended up burning down the store he loved.
When I look back, I still wonder sometimes, did this really happen to me?
A small businessman accidentally burns his life's work, all because of the wrong choice of clothing. But did it happen? It's time to reveal the truth about our three incredible stories. First up, it's the tale of the bachelor party blunder that nearly ended more than a marriage. But is it fact or fiction?
Thankfully, this double suicide was prevented. But that's because this wasn't a real story, and I'm not really Leslie DeSoto.
This legend is a highly embellished version of a 2010 Russian story about two people who planned to jump off the same bridge, but later fell in love. Next, it's the tale of fortune cookies that really delivered on their promise of wealth and prosperity. Is it true?
I'm Rebecca Paul Hargrove, president of Powerball and the Tennessee Lottery. This is a true story.
The lucky numbers cost the lottery corporation over $20 million. Although people continue to win by playing fortune cookie numbers, nothing has ever come close to the 110 winners of that draw. Maybe it's because the fortune cookie factory no longer draws numbers from a bowl and today uses a computer. Last is the tale of the static electricity that gave a carpet shop owner the shock of his life. But did it really happen?
This is a shocking story, but none of it is true. I don't own a carpet store.
Although fake, this story has a spark of truth. Static electricity can cause fires, though usually it ignites gas vapors, not liquids. That's the end of our episode called Heads or Tails. Were you able to separate unvarnished truths from polished lies? Don't worry if you couldn't. You'll get another chance to separate fact from fiction in the next installment of Urban Legends.